know, the live concerts have been performed in Japan for many years before we brought them here to North America or to Europe. I think it's 1999 maybe, or Tour de Japan, or I don't remember. I think it goes back at least that far, and we were very lucky, very fortunate that Nobuo-san was working with Shiro Hamaguchi on a lot of the wonderful arrangements that we still play in Distant Worlds, and that we model all the new arrangements off of that template. What we introduced in North America was we started adding video segments to the music, so that became another dimension to the concerts. But I can't say that it started with Dear Friends in 2004 and 5 in North America. It started way before that. As I say, for many years in Japan, concerts of just music, video game music, started by Nobuo Uematsu and Square Enix in Japan.
The two is an archon. Does that answer your question?
Well, let's see. We first met in 2004, 2005 with Dear Friends. Right. Yeah. No. Dear Friends first. Yeah. Dear Friends in Chicago. As a matter of fact, right here. February of 2005 was the first concert, and I conducted a few more, the rest of the performances of Dear Friends on that tour. It's just a very short concert series of maybe 4 or 5 concerts. I remember maybe Detroit Symphony and Houston or Dallas Symphony, just a few orchestras that year. And we stayed in touch, and we started building other projects. There was More Friends in Los Angeles, where the Black Mages played also with us, and that was fun. We wanted to do more of that, but Square Enix won't let us. And then after that, the Voices concert in Japan. Nobuo-san designed that concert, obviously featuring vocal material, and I was very honored to be invited to conduct that. I think I was the only person outside of Japan actually who came in for that, and that was a fabulous concert. We should do that again. Yeah, we've been talking about doing more of a choral. Voices too, right? And then it developed into Distant Worlds after that. And Distant Worlds, the goal there is trying to bring the music of Final Fantasy into a lot of territories around the world where it hasn't been heard. And we've been able to go to some fabulous locations, obviously Australia, all over Europe now, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and we'll continue. We played Buenos Aires this year, South America. We played Mexico City for the first time this year. So.
Oh, there's a... there's always way too many, and it's torturous to try to be forced to come up with one. And of course, I do like Final Fantasy, but there's a title called Fantasy Life that came out in Japan last year, and I like it not only for the music, but it has a good game system as well as story.
Thank you. Is there also any chance of the music from Dear Friends ever coming back in the future?
By that you mean Dear Friends, the song?
The music from Chrono Trigger and some of the other.
Oh.
In performance.
In performance.
Yes, in performance.
Oh, you have to make a plea to Square Enix for that.
No.
Actually, I am very surprised. Probably. I don't think my mother would believe me if I told her.
まずはいろんな音楽を知ることですよね、聞くことと、次にあんまり人と違うことをやってても気にしないすぐ周りと違うことやっても、不安になっちゃうじゃないですか。みんなと同じことをしなきゃならないんじゃないかとか思いがちだけど、別に人の真似をする必要ないと思うんですよ。
Well, first, you should listen to many different types of music. And second, you have to have confidence in yourself when you're doing something different. Because if you imitate someone else's style, you won't get that far.
I mean, from a factual standpoint, I mean, I can tell you my own personal. For some reason, and I have no idea why, I started playing the violin at about 8.5 years old. Somebody in my family tells me that there was somebody living across the street who played the violin, and I thought it was kind of interesting, and I started. I mean, it's nothing more complex than that. There was nobody in my family beforehand that was in the music business or entertainment or studied music before, so I have no idea really why I latched onto music and it stuck. There are many people that start much earlier these days with programs like the Suzuki teaching method, where they start at 2 and 3 years old. But yes, but there's a big fall off as well in maybe the 12 to 15 to 18-year-old range, where people start giving up. That it's either the hard work involved, but from my standpoint, it started by playing violin, and for some reason it stuck. I can't think of a more significant reason at that time. It became obvious that I needed to stay in music from about, 17 years old or something like that, where I finally threw everything else out the window and said, that's it, it's going to be music. So, where it took me later, that's a whole other story. The long and winding road that it takes you with, with the music career. Also very difficult to predict, but there was an idea about that. 音楽は好きだったんですけどね、とても僕は音楽ピアノも習ってなかったし、楽器とか習ってなかったんで、自分で音楽をやることはないだろうなと思ってたんですけど、子供の頃にロックを聴くようになって、クラシックは無理だけど、ロックバンドならできるかもしれないので、それがきっかけですかね。
Well, I always loved music, but I never took piano lessons. I didn't play any instruments, so I didn't think I had a chance in the music industry. But when I was a kid, I listened to rock music, and I got the idea that perhaps I won't be able to make it in classical music, but perhaps I could in rock music.
でもね、そういえば今思い出したんだけど、6歳の時に家におふくろと僕がいて、おふくろに「お前なんか歌ってみなさいよ」って言われたんですよ。で僕歌ったらおふくろが「歌うまいね」って驚いたの。あの時にね、褒められたことってすごい自信になってるかもしれない。
But actually, I do recall that when I was 6, my mother asked me to sing. And when I sang for her, she was really surprised, saying, "You really really sing well, Nobuo. And in retrospect, I think that kind of encouragement does give you a lot of confidence that goes far. So, lesson in life, encourage your kids.
I think it's, in many ways, in some ways, it might be more clear and more easy, actually, in some ways, because, you know, what you're asking, of course, is about the extremely limited capacity that Nobuo-san had to deal with at the very beginning, just 2 or 3 voices playing at the same time for a certain number of seconds, and how do you orchestrate that into a full symphony? But as it turns out, not every composer works this way, but Nobuo Uematsu, from the very beginning, the most important thing in the music of Final Fantasy, in my opinion, is melody and structure. And because that is the central, most important thing, it becomes very clear how to orchestrate and expand that, and still keep the basic structure of the original track. I think it's more difficult when we have just a whole bunch of action, you know, rhythm loops and things like that, with maybe just a harmonic pattern going over it. Now it's something where the orchestrator or arranger has a lot of choices of how do we orchestrate this action sequence. There's a lot of composers that do that, of course, with battle themes or scenes, but when it's a very clear melody and structure and harmonization, then we can really, it actually helps us. It actually makes it easier, I think, to orchestrate those things. I mean, a great example. Look at Final Fantasy VI, the opera. You know, the most amazing thing. Look at 40 minutes of opera music in Final Fantasy VI with no recorded voices. You know, just a lyric up there with little notes, no musical notes, and all you heard on the computer chip playing was just the basic melody and a little bit of supporting harmony. And from there comes, you know, been playing the opera Mario Draco for so long. So no, I think it's actually a lot of fun for us. Of course, in Distant Worlds, the definition of Distant Worlds is that we're trying to present the music as close to the way it was originally released, as opposed to an arranger's fantasy on themes. That's a different exercise, a beautiful exercise, a lot of fun to do, and I've conducted many of those, but it's quite different from trying to really present a very close copy of what happened in the original release of the game. So, what do you think about that?
曲がしっかりしてる、メロディーが綺麗なやつとか、メロディーが中心になってるやつがやっぱりアンドさんが言ったようにアレンジがしやすいと思うんですね。逆にコンピューターにやらせた複雑なフレーズなんかをオーケストレーションするのはなかなか人間が弾くことを想定して書いてないんで大変だと思いますね。今回さっきやったシーモアバトルとかもすごく人間がやるにはなかなか難しいフレーズだと思います。
Just as Arnie said, I think old pieces that still have a well-defined melody are the best ones that you can orchestrate today. And actually it would be the complex computer-generated sounds that would be the ones that are harder to orchestrate, because those weren't intended for humans to play on an instrument. And the Seymour battle that we just rehearsed would be an example of that.
Yeah, that's true. I was just thinking, actually, with that we played today, Dark World, and I remember listening to that from Final Fantasy VI and saying, there, that's perfect. It was very clear that Nobuo-san wrote, you know, the keyboard organ part, and there's this kind of synthesized voice solo instrument on there, and I said, perfect. It's violin and keyboard. It'll work great. So, I mean, sometimes it's very obvious with some of the older material. I don't know, maybe it's because we do it a lot, but, you know, it seems obvious what direction to go with that.
Dancing Man.
Dancing Man. That was difficult. that's a good example of something that's more difficult to orchestrate. Tier 4 from Dancing Man, that was... That's tough. Full symphony orchestra to get everyone to play that. That was... But it's the same principle. Again, it's very clear. Melody based on, kind of in the same principle. Sorry. Went off on that.
でも犬も飼ってるんですけど、犬の散歩してるときはいろんなアイデアが生まれますね。逆にキーボードの前に座って曲を作ろうと思うとなかなかできないかもしれない。いや、音楽が離れてるときの方がね、アイデアってひらめきます。前にもどっかで言ったことあるんですけど、お風呂入ろうと思って海でパンツを下ろした時にものすごいいいアイデアがひらめいて、また全部パンツ履いてシャツ着て洋服着て自分以外に行ってギターシンセサイザー立ち上げてそのアイデアを作ったりしたことありましたもんね。
It's kind of what could it be? But well, I do have a dog, and I get a lot of good inspirations when I'm walking the dog. And but actually, I get better inspirations when I'm away from music. I could almost blank out if I'm sitting in front of the keyboard trying to come up with something. And this is a story I think I told before somewhere. But one time I was about to take a bath. I was pretty much stripped except for my underwear, when I suddenly got an inspiration for a piece. So I hurriedly put my underwear back on, I put my shirt back on, I got my clothes back on. I went upstairs and booted up the computer and then started working. And so that's one example of inspiration coming away from music.
Kefka.
Oh yeah!
あれはワンウィングデンジャーですかね。ワンウィングデンジャー。っていうのは普通に曲を普通の作り方をしたんじゃなくて、2小節とか4小節くらいのアイデアを毎日コンピューターに貯めていったんですよ。で、全然その時に思いついたアイデアを。だから毎朝1つ目にひらめいたアイデアを何個か貯めていって、それが2、3週間経った頃にもうこんだけのアイデアがあったら1曲になるだろうなと思って、それぞれのピースを順列組み合わせで順番変えたりして並べていって作ったのがそのワンウィングエンジンだったんです。だからイントロがあって A メロがあってサビが来て曲の作り方をするんじゃなくて、ちょっと実験的な作り方をしたんで、それは3週間ぐらいかかったんですね。
And for me, the difficult piece would be One-Winged Angel, because I didn't compose this in a traditional way. Every day I would take 2 to 4 measures, and that would come up to me in the morning in the spur of the moment, and I would put that into the computer, and I would do that for 2-3 weeks. And by that time I was wondering if I had enough measures to come up with a single piece. So I tried combining the various measures into a piece. And so this was not written in the traditional way where there would be an intro, a phrase, and the segue and repeat, but it was very experimental for me. So this was the one that took me